people who want to get into product management. What do you think should be the right path or the roadmap for people to plan in order to get into the product management field?
This is the most burning question. You need to have a skill set that's a combination of business, design, technology. Tell me about a time where you felt so frustrated that you thought that maybe this is not for me. Do you have any framework-based advice where people can follow it?
So I personally recommend to all the people who ask me how to enter into product management is by following few books.
This brings me to one of the frameworks that I use.
Ever wondered how to break into product management? What mistakes to avoid? And how PMs think differently than engineers? Well, today we are going to break it all down. Welcome to the first podcast with Sharma ji in Tech. And today we have a very special guest with us. The guy who makes product management make sense. Please welcome Arindam Nath, aka the Product Geek. Welcome to the podcast, Arindam.
Hi, hello, thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here, Arindam. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. So I'm based out of Germany, hence during the weekends, it's typically the time for doing the household chores. Just made breakfast for me and I'm ready to go for the next 1 hour.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This episode will be very helpful to the people who are planning to break into product management. Let's get started. So Arindam, can you tell us about your journey? How did you enter into the product management?
Yeah, sure. It has been almost 10 years now that I have been doing the product manager's job. After my engineering, I have a BTech in avionics, which is aviation electronics from IIST. I was looking out for options outside of the industry, apart from the space tech in India. 10 years back, I think the industry was not that mature and the career options were also limited. So I was kind of looking outside and see what can be done. And I stumbled across the idea of doing an MBA. So I went to IIM Indore. And during my MBA, I also was interested mostly into marketing and advertising and some of the technical stuff. And during my placement season, there was a company, Cognizant Technology Solutions. They just opened up a role for handling their emerging businesses. So this was the vertical that was looking into new products that Cognizant was trying to build for their B2B customers. And I found that there was a good fit in terms of my skills, my personality, and so on and so forth. So I appeared for the interview. It was quite a fun one. Mostly I talked about some of my entrepreneurial experiences during my college days and stuff like that. So the interview seemed pretty interested. And thankfully I landed the job. Till that time, I was not aware what product management officially is because, as you know, it was not that known or popular 10 years back. So once I joined the organization, again, I had the chance to join a couple of different teams, as in the options that were provided to me. And the product management option was my least favorite because somehow it seemed to me that it was a back-end role. You get to sit with engineers and need to do some technical stuff, which I did not want to do as I was more into marketing and stuff. So I definitely wanted to join the sales team or the business development team because it seemed very fancy. You get to travel, talk to people and sell stuff, right? But somehow my reporting manager saw good potential in me in terms of fulfilling the product management role. And the other aspect that really interested me was having to do some UI UX design because you need to do wireframes and draw up a story for something to be sold. So that is what got me into the field. As I went more deeper, I started liking it, I started enjoying it, and it was also a cross-functional role. So the ability to talk to multiple different stakeholders within the organization was also something that I looked forward to. So that's how I started doing product management, and since then I haven't really looked back. One other part was basically sharing some of my knowledge that's not available directly for the aspirants or people who want to know about product management, and hence I also got started into the creator journey a couple of years later. So that's how I got into it. What about you?
Yeah, that sounds like a very cool journey, Arindam. So for me, the journey had been a little different. I started my career as a software engineer, and eventually I developed my interest in the business side of things. And I had worked closely with the product managers at my company. So I realized that, working on the business side, that is a very different thing than being an engineer. So you get to, as an engineer, you get to make things, but as a PM, you decide what to make and when to make. So that mindset actually, that really intrigued me. And I did this online certification from Indian School of Business, which is called PCPM, or Professional Certificate in Product Management. So it comes in two variations. One is a 3 months course and another is a 6 months course. So I personally did a 6 months course, which was more elaborate. And during that time, I gathered a lot of knowledge about product management, the theoretical knowledge as well as the assignments. And at the end of that course, I did a capstone project where we had to utilize all the knowledge that we gathered during our course and then make something out of it in a practical world. So that really was a great experience in that course. And finally, when I did that course, I transitioned into the product management field at my current company.
I think that sounds really interesting, and this is something I also keep prescribing to a lot of aspiring folks who reach out to me on how to start the journey, how to get into the product management role itself. This is what I ask them to do as well, that begin with something very fundamental, get to know about the field first, learn the theory, then if possible do a hands-on project where you will get the opportunity to apply your learning and see if you are made to do this role or not. Because I know social media and everything around us has glorified the role of product management. However, in reality, there are a lot of hurdles, there are a lot of challenges you face on a day-to-day basis. It's a stressful role. So before deciding to invest your entire career into it, just take a feel of it, do that, and probably it will give you a better view into what we do on a day-to-day basis.
Exactly. So I have known people who think really that product managers, they don't spend a lot of time working. They just take some meetings and then they have a lot of free time. So how do you perceive this, being in this role for more than 10 years now?
To some extent, I would agree that we do need to do a lot of meetings on a day-to-day basis. But beyond that, there are a lot of things that we also need to do. So meetings is one thing where we get to talk to different stakeholders within the organization. But at the same time, we need to take that feedback with us. We need to collate everything that sits together, clustering of ideas, trying to figure out a way of how can we deliver some of these outcomes that are expected out of us. So yes, I think collating the feedback is one thing, but gathering all your thoughts, putting all your skills behind to make sure that whatever business is expecting from you, you can efficiently deliver that, working with the designers, working with the engineers. And this is just the tip of the iceberg, right? There are so many stakeholders that you need to deal with on a day-to-day basis. Hence, effective calendar management skill is also important for the product managers. You can feel like drowning within all the meetings that you need to do in a day. But beyond that, you have to make sure that you reserve time for yourself so that you can think about stuff. You can make a roadmap for yourself apart from the product you are managing. And that's something I have learned in my past experience for all the companies, all the sectors I have worked so far. So that's a key skill that one needs to look forward to. What about you? What about the challenges that you faced when you first transitioned into the product management role?
Yeah, I think product manager role is really one of the underrated roles, to be honest. When I was an engineer, all I thought was that, the product managers, they take few meetings, they kind of talk to people and then get the work done somehow. But when I entered into this role, I feel that is only the part that is visible to the other roles. One of the things I'll say is very important for a product manager is to make the PRD, the product requirement documents, and actually list down all the requirements, make the customer at the center of everything, realizing everything from the customer point of view, understanding their pain points and everything, and make a tailored solution for each and every persona. So I feel that is a very essential skill of a product manager. And not just this, I think being very influential is another thing. And having such an influence only comes by experience and having the right data points. These are the skills, I think they are not very much visible to the outside world, because these talks, they happen on the back end. So I personally feel that having a lot of skills, including influence, product road mapping, doing the wireframing so that you can explain your ideas to your dev team, to your designers, to your senior leadership, all these play an important role for a product manager to be successful.
Definitely. Just to double click on that, basically what you're talking about is to uh, be available to switch between these different mindsets. Like you have
Right.
to wear multiple hats during your day, during your entire career. Sometimes you need to think from the frame of your users. Sometimes you have to think of it as the designer of the product. And of course, the business is always at the back. You need to make sense. You need to be able to
Right.
make money out of your product and so on and so forth. So switching context and the ability to be in multiple shoes and thinking through the lenses of all these different characters is something that's really crucial to this job, which is not very evident, and you're totally right in there, from anything that we see in social media or the the content that we see around product management.
Absolutely. Yes. So, how will you say was your experience working with the engineers?
Yeah, I think engineers are one of the most important stakeholders in the entire equation. My personal feeling with the engineering team is that you need to build some personal relationships with the team that you work with.
Right.
So, what helps in this area is to understand the real basics of technology, specifically in the domain of your product. How does your product work? What's the front end, back end stack that your product is using? Are there any specific technical knowledge that's needed for you to do the role within your product? So, if you are a bit fluent with that, it's quite easy to converse with the engineers in the language that they speak. See, as a product manager, of course, I have to paint a picture and let everyone know why are we doing something. That's one part of the job. You start the conversation with your engineers from that point of view. First explain that why are we doing this? Why is this important? Why is this piece of code that you are writing right now is going to solve a business problem while making the life easier for our user and making us some money out of it. Once that context is set with the engineer, then you go a bit deeper and try to figure out what challenges they are facing. If they have to build this, are there any constraints? Are there any challenges? What are the issues? Just try and figure those out. And talk as a friend. Try to figure out how you can help and solve some of these challenges for them. And I think over a period of time, once you build trust with them, that they can feel safe with you, they can openly discuss challenges, they can even throw some jargons at you technically and you don't feel uncomfortable. Once I think that feeling is achieved, it's quite easy for the PM to collaborate with the engineers and make a great team as a whole. And that's what I would suggest. First start with the bigger context, try to build personal relationships with the engineers, and also try and understand some of the technical fundamentals that's very specific or very relevant to your product and your industry. What about you? Have you worked very closely with engineers? And tell me about a time where you felt so frustrated that you thought that, maybe this is not for me.
When I work with engineers, I make sure that I actually paint the picture of our actual goal. I try to provide them with the information that will help them understand the customer's shoes. So once they themselves understand what we are building and why we are building it, I think then they more relate towards how the end goal should be. So painting a picture of the overall goal, I think that is very important for that. Secondly, I feel that it gets frustrating, time to time, but that is part of the journey because being an engineer, it comes with certain responsibilities about things, whether things are technically feasible or not. And for a product manager, that is very important to understand if we need to change our architecture or we have to take some decisions in order to change our approach entirely. And these can be, difficult things to understand. Moreover, we have some timelines committed to the senior LTs and for the product launch or the feature launch, and convincing other stakeholders about these kind of situations, that can be very difficult. So I think getting frustrated will not be the right terminology to use, but how to navigate through the hardships, that is something that a product manager has to understand and has to do along with the whole team, along with the relevant stakeholders.
Yeah, I totally agree. And just to add one more point here, what is a good practice is once you build something, you have shipped it out to your users, and then you see some impact in terms of business and the matrices that you have been chasing. It's always good to share that picture back with the engineers so that they can also see what impact it has made in terms of
Absolutely.
solving the users' problems and solving the revenue issues for us. So it gives them a sense of a bigger picture and also makes them feel very involved in the process. So that's something the PMs can practice to make sure they are in the good books with the engineers.
Correct. And I think one of the crucial aspects to point out here is that as product managers, we need to make sure that we should have the dashboard and the relevant metrics in place once we ship any product. Because once we do the implementation and we ship it out to user, it is very important to understand how the user is using that particular feature. And in order to do that, we need to have the relevant metrics in place that will help improve the product or take a decision whether we want to build something else.
That's correct. And this brings me to one of the frameworks that I use in terms of developing this whole ecosystem of collecting the right data, having it presentable, bringing out insights from the data that we have collected. So whenever I'm trying to build a feature, during the beginning phase itself, I start thinking about what kind of matrices I need to track, what kind of matrices could be treated as a North Star versus level 1, level 2, and so on and so forth. So once I have that idea, I already bake that into the requirements of the product, because sometimes it may just happen that some metrics is not readily trackable or available, and there might be some additional code that the team needs to write to capture those data at the first place. So it needs to be a part of the initial requirement phase itself. Now, once that part is sorted, you know that, okay, data would be captured. It would flow into some data lake or somewhere from where you can draw the insights and create a dashboard. Once that is done, and let's say the product is already shipped, now as a PM, it's more of a religious step that you need to do, that you need to keep a regular eye on the dashboard, right? It's not that you just build and forget. You have to come back, you have to look at the data regularly. If you don't do it regularly, you will actually not notice the changes that the product is going through. Hence, you will not be able to identify trends or any blockages or any other pain points that there might be there in the journey that you have built. So thinking about what to capture in the beginning, making sure that it's being captured, and once captured, having it in front of your eyes at a regular basis so that you can spot trends and issues is something that I would definitely suggest product managers to keep thinking about regularly. It's a practice. It doesn't come in one day. Even I face issues still now to do this religious activity of having to look at the dashboards at a regular basis. But yeah, I definitely have tried blocking specific time on my calendars on a weekly level so that I make sure to go back to the dashboards and look for any patterns that I could find. What about you? Like, what's your framework of looking at data, or any kind of specific tools that you use to make this easier for yourself?
So I personally, what I do is that I start my day by blocking at least 30 minutes on my calendar. And at the start of the day, I look at all the emails, all the dashboards where all the metrics are present, just to ensure that if there is anything at higher priority, I need to bring it up to my dev team in the stand-up or in the scrum. What needs to be solved today, or what are the priorities for today? So if there is any emails from the senior leadership or any customers or any feedback that we have gathered or any metrics that are performing badly, then those are needed to be fixed as soon as possible based on their priority. Because for an engineer, it must be just that we need to fix a bug, but as a product manager, we think about how many users are getting impacted by this particular issue. And if that number is big, then it is our responsibility to make the product experience good for that particular set of users. So that is how I start the day. In order to prioritize, I think there are various frameworks that are there in the market. I personally use the RISE framework, which I particularly use for prioritizing based on various parameters. But I think there is no particular framework which can fit into every situation. So it depends on situation to situation, and sometimes I think no framework can actually help, and it depends on the severity of the issue, how we want to pick it up.
Yeah, I totally agree. In fact, talking about frameworks, there are two different perspectives that I have. One is, let's say, preparing for product management interviews. I think in that area, knowing about these frameworks or understanding when to use what framework is quite important, because during the interviews, you might be asked with questions which are pretty standard for a product management interview, and it helps to apply some of these existing framework and organize your thoughts and to be able to answer that properly. In the real life, however, it could be quite challenging to apply frameworks on a day-to-day basis. It's not every day that I would think of a RISE framework or any other framework to apply while I'm trying to do something. But if you practice it, right, if you develop a routine where you think always in these methods of using these frameworks, then it could definitely shape up your skills as a product manager. So in terms of frameworks, that's how I would put it. At the same time, I do not deny that if you start thinking about things in frameworks, it eventually helps you making it as your second nature. Like once you are experienced, once you have practiced it long enough, then you don't really go consciously thinking about a framework, but it would become your second nature that you'll always follow certain steps to solve certain kind of problems.
Absolutely right, Arindam. So since we're already talking about people who want to get into product management, what do you think should be the right path or the roadmap for people to plan in order to get into the product management field? Because that is one of the top questions I get on my channel and even the other mentorships that I do. That is one of the main thing people want to understand how they can get into product management.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's true. This is the most burning question that I have been getting on my different social media channels as well. So how I look into it is to first separating the segments of users. And by users, I mean the PM aspirants here. I'm thinking as a product manager now. So let's say for doing the product management role properly, you need to have a skill set that's a combination of business, design, technology. Everyone has seen that classic Venn diagram where the PM sits in the middle of all these three circles. And practically, I feel that these three circles are not enough. There are other things like data and product sense and stuff like that. So it's a bigger Venn diagram where the product manager needs to be at the center of everything. Now, I would look at all of these things as skills that you need to have as a product manager. So coming back to the segments, you might be already in a segment where you are adjacent to some of these circles. Let's say you are a business analyst. That means you might be already covering the business circle by quite a bit. Okay, you might be lacking design skills or technical skills, but you can move towards there. Similarly, if you're already a designer, then you are covering the design circle, but you can build skills for the other parts of the Venn diagram. So when you are looking at transitioning into a product management role, you need to first map yourself. Where do you belong today? If you have to rate yourself in terms of skills, where do you belong today? Where does a good product manager need to be in this map? And how can I bridge the gap between my today's position to the position where I aspire to be? I think that's how people should look into it. If you are someone who is, let's say, into a sales role, okay, you might have good understanding of how the business functions, how can we make more money and stuff. You have a business lens to it. So then you should think about, okay, how can I enhance my design skills or technical skills so that I can be in a position where I am comfortable doing the product management job. So you can draw this parallel to all different types of jobs you are currently doing, or even if you're a student, you might have inclination towards a particular topic out of these, and based on that, use that as a basis for your skills at this point in time, and try and understand how can you bridge the gap for the rest of the skills. So that's the starting point. Once you know that, then you can take different types of approaches to be there. Let's say we talked about doing a fundamental course or a course that talks about all the different aspects of product management. So let's say if you are nowhere near these circles, then you should take a course which will give you understanding of all of these different topics. If you have already done business and technology in the past, maybe you are an engineering manager or you are closely working with the senior leadership team, then maybe you are lacking some design skills or stakeholder management. Just work towards those skills. Try and identify courses that will help you achieve these skills. So in summary, basically you need to identify where you are today versus how can you bridge the gaps for all the skills that's needed to do the product management job, and accordingly find your way through that point. And there's so much of free content today. There are so many mentors and leaders I have seen sharing so much of knowledge. So I think the world is your oyster, and you just need to stay focused and understand where you need to invest your time, and that's how you would crack it. What about you? Do you have any, let's say, a framework-based advice where people can follow it and easily declutter the noise that they see all around?
So I personally recommend to all the people who ask me how to enter into product management is by following few books. I personally feel that the knowledge that books provide, they can't be replaced by any other means of knowledge. So I personally recommend people books like Cracking the PM Interview, Decode and Conquer, because they provide knowledge in a way that is essential for people who are trying to enter from any kind of domain. So they provide instances of people who are into various different companies, how a product manager role is different in Microsoft, different in Google, different in Meta. So the role, although it sounds the same, but expectations out of it is different in different companies. So I personally recommend, if anyone is trying to or planning to shift into product management, make sure that you read these two books first. That is how you will get an understanding what a PM does. Now, it entirely depends how much you are ready to invest into getting into the product management field. For me, I think the best advice that I can give is nothing can replace an MBA, because the environment that an MBA provides, that is a different kind of an environment. So, but I totally understand that, doing an MBA, it can be a costly affair, because I have come across various queries because people are not actually willing to spend, or they have some kind of a blocker due to which they can't spend 30 to 40 lakhs on a full-time MBA. So for those kind of people who are planning to do something apart from MBA, I think there are certifications available online that they can do on a cheaper side. So now, I personally feel there is no right path on getting into the product management field. If you can get into product management on the job, I think that is the best kind of experience that you can get into, because if you have an experience, then theory you will learn it, but having a practical experience is another thing.
So yeah, just to close the loop on the point on MBA, having done it myself, I can vouch for the fact that once you do an MBA, you become sort of a generalist. That's one way to look at it. The second way is the environment during your MBA period is quite challenging as well. You get to work with a bunch of talented people, and that's how you would also feel when you move into a high-performing corporate environment, right? So the ability to handle pressure, basic things like communication management or talking to multiple people, stakeholder management, these things are by default understood or realized during your MBA period. Hence, having that background is a preferable thing for someone who maybe is hiring for a product management role. And hence, I understand a company's perspective when they typically mention, that the MBA degree is a must, and that is what is creating confusion in the minds of the aspirants, that do I need this or not? Well, to do the job properly, you may not need it in theory, but at the same time, having that degree or having that experience of the MBA period will definitely make you grow faster, make you adapt faster, and make you more suitable for the role. So that's how I would put MBA in terms of product management.
Right. And I think with the changing environment that we are in right now, there are other alternatives to MBA as well. There are some certifications. There are 6 months courses, 1 year other programs that people can get into. There are various channels on YouTube and Instagram that people can actually follow. So I'm not sure if you know about this or not, but there is a channel called Exponent on YouTube, which that is a very good channel actually. So if anyone is planning to prepare for the PM interviews, I think you should go and check that channel for sure.
Yeah. Coming to basically consuming relevant content in terms of sharpening your business acumen or understanding how products or startups work, I think Y Combinator's YouTube channel is also one of the best channels where you get to learn about, okay, what's an MVP? How do startups function? What is it like to think about an idea and start building an MVP and ship it to users, get feedback, getting product market fit, and all of these concepts. So Y Combinator is something I I really enjoy. I go back to it multiple times, looking at so many talks and so many different ideologies that they put forward. That's one. On the other hand, I think there are brilliant product managers on Twitter, on LinkedIn as well. People like Shreyas Doshi, people like Sam Altman. I think all the good product leaders are always putting out content or ideas which are worth consuming, and maybe it could be as good as having an MBA degree and collecting that sort of an attitude. But yeah, it's of course quite organized when you do a certification or a program that is guided by mentors and teachers and professors. So I think that's where the difference is. If you are really self-driven, you can take inputs randomly from all over the internet and still get some actionable insights. Go for it. Otherwise, if you feel no, I want something that's pre-prepared for me, or it's given to me on a silver platter, then go for something which is maybe institute driven or a mentor driven and stuff like that. That's how I would approach it.
Absolutely. I think having a side project can actually help you in a lot many ways. Because when I was an engineer and I was planning to shift into the PM domain, I actually was trying to find ways to prove myself to the leadership, or to find ways to get highlighted in their eyes that why am I a suitable candidate for the product management role. So I actually prepared a whole document, a PRD document, about a new feature entirely in my product, and that actually was eventually incorporated into the product. So I think having a side project and having people to validate that will actually help anyone who is planning to shift into the product management role.
That's absolutely true, and I cannot emphasize more on the necessity of having a side project or doing something on your own just to figure out everything. And I can give some personal examples here. As I said earlier, during my interview, when I was landing my first PM job, it was mostly related to my entrepreneurial experience. So back in 2011, I got together with a couple of my friends, and we were trying to build this social network based learning platform, because Facebook was a big thing during that time. 2011, like, Facebook was at its peak in the young generation, or for the younger generation. And we found that a lot of people are wasting time on doing social media while they were going to the internet and trying to learn something. So we tried to combine some aspects of social and learning, and we did it for a good 2 years period, and then we set it off because I went to do my MBA and stuff like that. So during my interview, when I told my interviewer that, hey, this was something that I did and it was quite fun and interesting, I think I can do something like this. So out of like the 1 hour interview, 45 minutes was around him trying to understand what I was trying to build, how I went about it, what was the design piece, what was the engineering piece, how did we get our first users and stuff like that. So I think doing a side project definitely opens up multiple avenues, and it also gives you experience of solving problems in a real world. So there are multiple benefits. Then going forward, I kept doing a lot of other projects as well. I was running a UI UX agency when I was doing my first job on the side, which gave me a good outlook towards how to think about building user journeys, or if I have to, let's say, create a product which is quite enticing and I have to keep the user engaged, then all of these design experiences help me a lot to get into the shoes of the designers and developing that design mindset. And this also helped me in another aspect, which is networking with people, right? So once you get into a side project, it also opens up avenues for you to talk to multiple people and get their perspectives on certain things. So overall, I think it's a great thing if you start doing something on the side, understand multiple things, use it to your advantage, post it on LinkedIn, go public. There's a thing called building in public on the internet nowadays. So you never know who is going to spot you and who is going to give you an opportunity to do something bigger. So don't hold back. If you have time, invest your time into developing these skills, try out. There's nothing to lose. I think that's the key takeaway that you can take from it, and you have everything to gain. So go for it.
Yeah, and I think these small little accomplishments you can only realize once you look back, and then you can connect the dots.
That's
yeah, cool. So can you tell about some cool features that you have built, Arindam?
Yeah, a bunch of them actually. So, I think back in 2016-17, I was working with Reliance Jio, and I was working on a health platform. It's a digital platform where users are able to digitize their medical records, get in touch with different practitioners based on the issues they were facing, and stuff like that. You can also book a test from a pathology lab and order the test at home and stuff like that. So I joined as a PM there, and I was tasked with the problem statement of solving for engagement. Is there any way we can keep our user engaged within the app so that eventually they will try out more products from us, more services from us? So to achieve that, I had to think about something that will make the users come back more and more. So what I did was I built a content feature within the app. This is basically sourcing content from multiple industry experts like nutritionists or doctors or people who are into fitness and everything. So they would give out their advice for different topics, and this was more like influencers back then, because YouTube and Instagram was not that big during that time. So we used to collect multiple industry experts as creators on the platform. It was just text-based blog format content, nothing related to video and stuff like that. But still, we were able to onboard like 50 odd creators from different medical domains and have them create content regularly for us. Then I built that feature of having this content displayed on the platform, planning out marketing campaigns and notifications around this particular feature, so that whenever there's a new articles that's been published on the platform, you get a notification, you can subscribe based on your interest categories and stuff like that. And we saw a very big jump in terms of the engagement and the retention that we were able to make with that feature. So that's something I'm quite proud of. And in fact, this is one of the reasons I started looking more into content itself and creating content. So that is why this feature is close to my heart, because I saw a good potential of people who are experts in some area sharing their knowledge and having it available freely, or to some extent they can monetize also based on their content. So this was an interesting concept to me and got me started on my creator journey. What about you? Can you tell us about something that you are really proud of?
So I think I've worked on various features, and one of the cool ones that I've worked on was in the Microsoft Edge browser. So I have been in Microsoft Edge browser team for quite a long time, specifically in the passwords and payments area. So whatever you see related to passwords, that is built by our team. Okay, and I once worked on a feature where we were seeing that the Edge browser, we are seeing some churn in the users. They are leaving the platform specifically because of the passwords area. So we wanted to do something else, something for to retain the users in our product. So what we figured out was that whenever people are going to some sign up pages, they're not spending a lot of time there and they drop it. They close the browser. Then we figured out what is that one thing we can do to retain the users from that particular page. So we built out a feature for the sign up pages where we actually collate all the information that is saved on your browser, whether it is your profile information, your contact information, your recommending some strong passwords. And once we collate all that information, we fill up all the fields of the sign up pages so that user doesn't have to fill all that information, because sign up pages, they are usually very long. There are some hidden fields as well. So once we collate all this information, we filled it out on the page, and that would actually help users save a lot of clicks and filling out the information. And we actually saw a very huge increase in the numbers of users getting retained on the Edge browser because of this particular feature, and that helped the product in an overall achieving the overall aim.
Yeah, this brings me back to some of the problems that I also see in a similar manner, where if you make the user do a lot of stuff during your flow or something like that, then the probability of the users dropping is quite high. So whenever you can pre-fill something, see, as long as you are adhering to the legal privacy and the security laws, that's fine. So pre-fill it, make them feel like a very smooth experience overall, and you would see improvement in terms of the retention or the conversions for sure. So that's a great observation.
Yeah. I think this has been a great conversation, Arindam. Before we close this podcast, I want to understand your thoughts. If there is someone who is into designer role, if there is someone who is into data analyst role or a business analyst role, or someone is an engineer, do you think people can enter into the field of product management?
Yeah, I think this is even easier for all the professions you just mentioned. I have seen doctors coming into product management. I have seen lawyers coming into product management because, yeah, once you are expert in a certain area, as I was saying, my framework of judging yourself right now versus where you want to be if you are a product manager, it becomes easier once you are an expert in a certain area, and then just map out what else do you need to do. For a designer, for a business analyst, I think you are already there, you are already ahead of the curve, you have at least one of the circles covered properly, so it's just a matter of time that you will develop the skills in the other areas. So just identify what you need to develop and identify which are the things or which are the people that can help you get there. So I don't think there is a issue with not finding people nowadays in this age of internet. Use LinkedIn, use Twitter, use whatever social media you can to network with a bunch of people who are already doing what you want to do. Try and understand where you are lacking and how can you bridge that gap. And I think the networking skill we did not discuss yet, but this is also an underrated tool in someone's bucket to just land the opportunities that you're looking for. Because as you develop more relationship, as you develop networking, you will not just understand about the field, but you will also be aware of multiple opportunities that's out there, and people who have developed good relationships with you will also think about you when they come across some suitable opportunities. So they might just reach out proactively and let you know. And this has happened to me multiple times in the past, and in fact the current role that I'm doing was output of a good networking that I did in the past, and I just followed it through. So yeah, that's another advice for the aspiring PMs. So focus on networking and focus on identifying the skills that you need to build, and anyone from any background can actually aspire and achieve this goal of becoming a product manager.
So even if someone is a designer or they're into any non-technical role, this is, I think, a very important message that you can still navigate into the field of product management.
Yeah, I'll just go back to the idea of what's the easiest way to transition. As you said rightly, the lowest hanging fruit for you could be looking into existing opportunities within your current company,
Right.
And what will help putting your case forward is to already do some homework on your own. Maybe come up with an improvement of the product that your team is building. Think of yourself as a product manager already and try and put in some ideas of how you can improve it, how we would build it, how we do it differently. Pitch the idea to your managers or any product managers that are already working, and see if you can be helpful in any way. It doesn't have to be a formal product manager role always. You start somewhere and build your way up to gaining trust from the team and having them feel comfortable that you can also do the job, and if possible make a transition. I've seen multiple people who have done this properly. Like, that is one way to do it. The other way is, again, going through these side projects and building a portfolio. You need to put it out there and make people notice that what you have done. I know that a lot of people are doing it, but that doesn't mean that you stop doing it and there's a lot of noise. So, just try and shine and try and bring in your new perspectives and try and get into as many eyeballs as possible. And I am hopeful that you will get the opportunities that you're looking for.
Exactly. And this skill will actually help a product manager highlight their accomplishments and the impact that the team has delivered for the overall product.
Right.
Cool. I think this has been an amazing conversation with you, Arindam. This episode will actually be helpful for anyone who is planning to shift into the field of product management. And if you have any questions, make sure to drop them in the comments, and one of us will surely answer that particular question. Cool. Thank you,
All
Arindam.
right.
Thank you for joining, and I wish you all the best. Let's see if we can do another podcast in near future.
Definitely. Thanks for having me, and I would love to come back again and discuss some more. Thank you. See you.
All right. This was a great discussion, man. I guess whoever is planning to shift into the role of a product manager, I hope today's conversation was helpful to you. If you found this useful, make sure to follow and subscribe both of us for more PM insights.